Welcome guys, here we are in a session to try out Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020. We're actually using the cloud service here, the streaming cloud service, which is just a tab in a web browser, which is pretty cool. This way you don't have to download hundreds of gigs. That was kind of the main setback for me. There's only a few select simulators that I use, considering the file size of them. But if I can just use this online, well, why not? So let's go ahead and do a realistic engine startup, but I've noticed that it has some difficulty with a mixture. So it's shifting RPMs with a mixture here. There's not much feedback on the display, and you might not get such an accurate mix. So I really don't recommend using Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 for an actual startup. You're better off with the automatic feature that just starts with the engine on. You want a full startup with a simulator that's commercially available. You want X-Plane 12. That way you can see the fluctuations of the RPMs based on how much you shift the mixture around. You can't here. So for a realistic startup, we can't do much here, but we can get like 90% of it, excluding the mixture and the magneto check. So let's go ahead and get started. Before starting engine, we want a pre-flight inspection. That's the walk around. We can't really do that here, I assume. I haven't found any feature for getting out of the plane and walking around. So let's assume pre-flight inspection completed. Seatbelts are adjusted. Fuel selector valve is on both. That is a check. Circuit breakers are all in. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing sticking out. No alarms. That is a check. Avionics meters are off, technically. But this screen just stays on. Despite master off and avionics off, it just stays on. It only has effect on the right panel, is what I've noticed here. It's very strange. So there's a lot of default settings that you just can't manipulate. Brakes are set. That's what it will look like. They are set. Brakes are set. That is a check. Now we go on to the starting engine phase. So mixture, the red knob here. Mixture is rich. Rich is 100%. That is a check. Now we want to prime the gasoline right next to it. That's the throttle. 100, that is 1 prime. 2 primes, we want 3. And 3. Now we leave it open at 1/4. What I've noticed here is that 1/4 is not 25%. Let's leave it open at around 37 something. There we are. Because the goal after ignition is reaching 1000 RPM. Around here, you'll see the numbers fluctuating. It should be close to 1000 in theory. So we are primed. Throttle's open at 1/4. That is check. We move on to master. We turn on master right here. Both switches. Master is on. We want beacon, which is a specific light. Beacon is on, and with that on, like a paramedic, you yell clear before engaging here. So you yell it out. You want people to hear you clear. And we have ignition. Alright, everything in order. RPM's at around 1000. We're at 1010. So it looks like that's the golden percentage right there. 37 decimal something. It's going to be like decimal 5, decimal 2. And so we have power on. We are engaged. And revolutions are at 1000 RPM. That is a check. Under 1000 RPM conditions is our oil pressure green. Yes, it is. That is a check. Avionics and radio is now on. That's both switches, same as master. And it's only going to affect this panel, you see? This right panel here. And I assume it's going to be the same thing. We just press enter a bunch of times. Press enter, or right mouse soft key to continue. There we are. Same IRL, just press enter a bunch of times. So here we are. Avionics and radios are on, and they automatically set to their frequencies here. Now we want lights. Lights as required. We're going to want landing, taxi, and these are the 2 lights that you turn off once you're 300 feet above the ground. Landing and taxi switch off, and your flaps go neutral. They go 0. We're going to want navigation, and with automatic engine on, strobe seems to be on, but We never use strobe lights. Never gets this cold to use piton heat, so we want landing, taxi, navigation. And beacon was on from the beginning. That is lights is required to check. Now we move on to a phase before takeoff run-up. Doors and windows are now to be closed, which they are. That is a check. Brakes are set. That is a check. Mixture rich, and now revolutions at 1,700. So, looks like our RPMs move to the right panel here. 1,700. So we put in some throttle. Let's see. Put in some throttle. Here we are. Reaching 1,700. And you'll see what I mean by the mixture here. It does not function. Looks like there's no other surface, no other tool that gives you RPMs in a non-digital format. There we are. 1,700 RPM is a check, and now we adjust the mixture, which is pulling on the red knob here, until the RPMs up here no longer rise. But 1710 is a constant, so let's pull. 1710. Pull some further. 1710. No shift, no change. So we'll just assume mixture is adjusted. You want it close to 1800 RPM. But maybe this is not how it functions in the G1000, but I doubt it. There's just no functionality with a mixture. So we skip the mixture part and say it's adjusted. And now under these conditions, we do a magneto check. Checking individual magnetos for fluctuations, making sure the fluctuations of RPM aren't too dramatic. Let's check left. Alright, we ended up at 1590. Let's return to both. From 1590, let's round up. Let's say it was 1600. And now we're back at 1700. So fluctuation no more than 100 RPM is the ideal. We're 100 and change in fluctuation. That's not the biggest difference. It's flyable. Let's do a right magneto check. Not flyable because of the mixture part, but the magnetos and everything else seems to be functioning. Okay, 1590. Shift no more than 100. A fluctuation no more than 100 RPM. Now we return to both. Let it recover at 1700. But the mixture part would make this a red flag and you shouldn't fly. If the RPMs aren't shifting as you pull the mixture, that can't be normal. It's supposed to. But then again, G1000 might be a little different, but I doubt it. Under these conditions, we'll say mixture was adjusted. We moved on to magnetos, and magnetos are a check. So we are on the instruments in green phase. Let's see if instruments are green under these conditions at 1700 RPM and everything else adjusted. So we want to check oil pressure under 1700 RPM. It is green. Oil temperature is green. And perimeter, it's charging, I assume. That's usually how it goes. It's 0 and eventually it shifts. Vacuum, green is going to be between 4 and 6, which is going to be this green line, I assume. Starts at 4, ends in 6. So suction, vacuum between 4 and 6. Instruments, alternator, suction, everything green. Where it go? Now we reduce power to 1000 RPM. Alright, let's see here. Still getting used to this. My second time using Microsoft 2020. Okay. Here we are. 1000. Alright, 1000 RPM is check. And now from here we do traffic and clearance. So it would sound something like, if this was JFK, this is a desert airport, it would be something like JFK International, this is Cessna 172 on runway 09 ready for departure. Now that would be based on this scenario. Ideally you'd be communicating this from hangars and you'd have a flight plan and you'd know even where to taxi. So even where you move on the tarmac is controlled. And then you line up before the runway. And before the runway is when you get these instructions to take off, where you get cleared for takeoff, and then you enter the runway. You don't just line up here. You're off to the side, and you enter off to the side because the function is, or the purpose is speed. You want functionality here. You can't just drive up here and do a little U-turn, set yourself up, and take your time. You're off to the side, and you're going to launch like a slingshot, lining up with a runway at a high RPM, a little over 1,000 RPM at least, maybe like a 1,300 minimum, and then full throttle once you're lined up in the middle. So that is everything for a realistic engine startup. The only thing not realistic is that mixture here. The mixture not shifting RPMs, that just doesn't happen. But correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's the model for the G1000 that automatically sets the mixture for you. But again, I doubt it, and that feature just doesn't work in the Microsoft version. For a more realistic engine startup, complete one, I would have to go X-Plane 12. Microsoft 2020 is just better looking, more feature rich. Even beginner friendly, so I would recommend this one if you're just starting out. So that is the best we can do for a realistic engine startup. That's like 90 something percent of an actual engine startup, just ignoring the mixture part. So if you ignore the mixture part, this is pretty much it in how it looks. But again, if you're a beginner, you would not start on the runway. You'd be doing all this in the hangars. So I hope you guys get an idea of what it would be to fly using Microsoft Flight Simulator as an example. This is what it would totally look like in an airport. And the graphics are really good. I recommend this for the graphics, not its physics. But let's do more of this. Hope you guys liked it, and see you guys in the next one.